Serial killers, strange disappearances, unexplained mysteries, terrible disasters. I'm Nate Hale, and in my show The Conspirators, I'm here to tell you all the stories from history your teacher never told you about. Hear the real story behind the Bermuda Triangle, or about the serial killer operating in Nazi-occupied Paris, or what dark secret lurked within the walls of a Scottish castle. Listen to The Conspirators on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You have been warned. Failure to comply, and you shall suffer. No one can help. No one can protect you. Obey. Obey.
Hello everyone, Gabby here.
And I'm Steven, or Sakui.
And welcome back to the Mystery of Everything podcast. So imagine one day you open your mailbox to a letter that reads exactly like that opening statement. And I mean, while some people may say their bills may read in a similar fashion, mildly threatening and very ominous.
Where do you live? You live with me.
I mean, yeah, but some people may say. Some people. Also, after you forget that you didn't put your bill on autopay and they sent like 3 letters that you missed. Not to call anyone out.
Okay, fair enough.
But today's episode looks at specifically the unsolved mystery of the Circleville letters. Now, I did put a poll out on Instagram a few weeks ago asking, hey guys, what do you want me to research? And a lot of you said the Circleville letters, and I'd never heard of them. So here we are. Basically, these letters, they terrorized the town of Circleville, Ohio for years. And to this day, no one who knows who the sender of these mysterious letters are.
So what was more threatening, the letters or being in Ohio itself?
I know. So we covered Illinois, which was the Mad Gasser of Mattoon. I'm probably still saying that wrong. Sorry, guys. I know a lot of y'all were like, that's not how you say that. I'm sorry. And now we're covering Ohio. We need some Indiana. We need some Kentucky, just to really like round it out. So send me some Indiana mysteries and send me some Kentucky mysteries because I want us to keep it fair and balanced. We're going to drag every state. Thank you. Wait, what was I saying?
Well, we were talking about threats that were coming off of states, so,
Right, yes. So, the long-term effects of the contents of these letters that were sent by this mysterious writer, they're still seen to this day because it completely shook up this town.
Wait. When you say seen to this day, do you mean that there are still letters that are being sent out to this day?
No, just you'll see the amount of chaos that it caused, basically. Like, it's really hard for a town to come back from something like this. You'll see. I mean, if you've seen Bridgerton, this is essentially Lady Whistledown, but instead of publishing everyone's secrets, she wrote to that person with the threat of revealing the secret, which I think is incredibly more sinister somehow. Like, just go ahead and publish it, Queen. Instead of blackmailing everyone. Just straight up extortion.
Just straight up extortion. Yeah, no, in those circumstances here, because I mean, if someone is doing something that is... Wait, are they actually being extorted, like for money?
No, it's not actual extortion. It's more like threatening, blackmail, almost. It's not great. You'll see.
Okay, for what purpose? You're going to have to explain this.
Well, you'll see. It's going to be really, it's not great. So our story begins in the town of Circleville, Ohio, which is a small town of 12,000, about half an hour outside of Columbus, Ohio. So it starts in the late 70s, and it's a story of borderline, if not total, blackmail, and it actually resulted in the death of a young man.
Wait, from a letter?
Yeah, from a letter. Kind of from a letter. You'll see.
Okay, you are teasing me along here.
Someone dies, someone else gets almost killed, and then a lot of other people get arrested. It's a whole thing, you guys.
In a town of 12,000?
Yeah. It's big enough for a little mystery.
Uh-huh.
A little intrigue, if you will. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we have to explain exactly what happened to hundreds of residents, from businesses to government officials and agencies, that would cause mass chaos and citywide panic. But I just have to say that this is such an Ohio story. It's terrible, but it screams Ohio.
Yeah, everything that you've described here so far, it almost sounds like, you know how they have those eldritch horror kind of things? And it's like, remember the guy on TikTok that it's like literally everything is just based out of Ohio? That's where it all is.
Mayor Love.
This is one of the lost stories.
Mayor Lovecraft, right?
Yeah, that guy.
Yep. So in March of 1977, an unknown writer left letters in the mailboxes of multiple people. So these letters, they contain threats and accusation, full of people's darkest secrets that had the ability to turn their world upside down. And I mean, these were life-ruining secrets. These are the type of secrets that you would see someone commit murder over, you know, like something that cannot get out without someone going to prison type secrets.
Like the definition of, I know what you did last summer, like that whole kind of stuff. But like real, like not just someone making it up and like actual real secrets.
You'll see. It gives like, it is so Pretty Little Liars. It's wild. Okay. So the initial wave of letters were sent to a variety of people, including 3 people that would become incredibly wrapped up and affected by the entire controversy. So they are Mary Gillespie, Ron Gillespie, and Paul Fresher. I've attached a photo of Mary Gillespie as well as you'll see this guy later, the school superintendent, the superintendent of the Circleville schools. And I mean, they're both pretty good looking people, but they were kind of at the center of the beginning of this entire controversy. Like they're the cause for essentially what I would say it becoming as insane and unhinged as it was. And I'll get into that. I promise we're getting there. So Mary Gillespie, she was a school bus driver and she was the first person to receive a Circleville letter. So she was married with children. And her letter was an accusation that she was having an affair with the superintendent of the Circleville City Schools, who was a man by the name of Gordon Massey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, was she?
Well, we'll get into that later. So the writer of the letter claimed that if Mary didn't stop seeing Massey, her affair would be exposed to everyone. And this initial letter was one that Mary, at first, she kept to herself. Like, she wasn't going to tell anyone. How are you going to be like, hey, I got this mysterious letter of someone threatening to reveal an affair? Like, I would keep that under wraps too. But things got really out of hand when her husband, Ron, also received a letter stating that if he didn't stop his wife's affair, his life would be in danger, which that's unhinged. Like, why is it all of a sudden his responsibility to handle his wife's affair? That's demented, you know?
Yeah, not to mention the whole thing is kind of weird in the first place. Like, okay, hold on. So she received this letter. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't even tell her husband, like, what was going on. Why would she not say anything? Unless, I mean, I guess she doesn't want to be accused of anything or have him think it. But still, it seems weird that hiding the letter in the first place may give some indication that it's real.
Or maybe she just thought it was weird and someone just playing a prank, you know? Because we have people, like friends who receive those letters or like, you know, messages, and they're like, oh, someone's pulling a prank or someone's just like messing with me.
Remember when we were in college? Actually, no, you're right. We were in college and you got random messages accusing me of like cheating on you.
It's a thing that happens. People just kind of like mess with other people. You know what I'm saying? So these accusations, however, they did do a great deal of damage, as you would imagine. I mean, Mary Gillespie, she was a young woman with 2 children who had married her high school sweetheart, Ron Gillespie. And Ron was thought of by almost everyone in town as an absolute sweetheart. Like, I was reading a CBS 48 Hours interview, and the person was raving about, like, what a great, wonderful guy he was, you know? And because she knew them personally, they were, like, interviewing actual people that this affected. And so because of this scandal, you know, such as like cheating on him with the superintendent, this was enough to like shake the town up. Like, the thought of his wife, his high school sweetheart, the mother of his children, cheating with like the school superintendent. Plus she works as a bus driver for those schools. I mean, come on, guys. That's big.
That is some grade AT. Like that. I mean, if you're talking about a thing for a drama, that is small town-esque. Like that's the thing that would shake the entire community.
Yeah. And the superintendent, Gordon Massey himself, was also married with a child. Like, I think he had a son. So Mary, of course, she denied that she ever had an affair, but this didn't stop things from getting pretty bad for everyone involved. It wasn't just letters that were being written to Mary and Ron, but apparently there was like a campaign of letters to the entire town. There were phone calls, offensive signs, And it got pretty bad. Like, one interview from CBS News claimed that Ron would have to drive around and remove offensive signs along Mary's bus route. Now,
Hold up. Signs? Like as in like campaign signs, except in this case about her having an affair?
Right. And I looked for more information to back that specific claim up, but I didn't. But I do know that there are signs that do come into play much later on in a more like messed up way. And someone actually ends up going to prison for one of those signs. And it's really, I know, it's insane. Guys, I promise I will explain everything. But these signs, I don't know if for sure Ron was removing signs. I just know that it was in the interview that I was reading through. So a lot of this, you guys will get the source material. If you want it, if you want anything, email me. I can link it to you. And if you're on Patreon, you'll have it for sure. So the entire time these letters were being sent out, though, no one knew who was sending them or why. And why specifically did the writer choose Mary Gillespie? Like, that seems almost personal,
It does. I mean, you're talking about, okay, to be fair, if they wanted to potentially wrap up the superintendent, who actually seems to have a position of power in this, I would understand that. But specifically a bus driver, unless there maybe was actually something there, why go through that trouble?
I know. It's just really strange. Like, unless something was actually happening and this person actually knew, which they deny, but you'll see there's like a plot twist later on. It's kind of strange to single out Mary Gillespie for like the first letter. So why would someone target a bus driver and a school superintendent randomly? Like, the way the case worked, it made it seem like the person knew either Mary or Gordon personally and definitely wanted to see them taken down, Especially since the letter to Ron said something along the lines of, quote, Mr. Gillespie, your wife is seeing Gordon Massey, one of the Circleville letters read. You should catch them together and kill them both. He doesn't deserve to live.
Hold up. He doesn't deserve to. This sounds like someone who is more personally closely associated with the superintendent than anything else by that logic.
There's a lot of, you'll see, because I have a few more after this. I feel like it was really centered around Gordon Massey, which is really strange because you cannot find a lot of information about the superintendent. I know he was like a powerful man, but you don't find a lot of info about his son, his wife, his marriage, or him. And I feel like whatever would have motivated, this is just like my personal belief and speculation. I think it was someone close to him, like,
That would make sense. Also, remember, as you have said already, this is a town of 12,000 people. That is not big. And so, yeah, he may have had power, but there wouldn't be all that much in the way of public records about him in comparison to something from a significantly bigger city.
Yeah. So that was a personal letter. It's not just oh yeah, your wife is cheating on you, but like it wanted her to really pay with her life, making the attacks on Mary Gillespie seem even more personal. Now, I'm going to spend some time talking about the case of the Circleville letters to specifically the Gillespies, because while other people did receive letters, hers led to significantly more darker events unfolding. So, here are some other letters that they received. So the first one says, quote, stay away from Massey. Don't lie when questioned about meeting him. The other one says, quote, I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know you have children. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified. It will be over soon. Other one, quote, we know what kind of car you drive. We know where your kids go to school.
Hold up. So it's not even just personally threatening. That's a specific threat against the children in that circumstance. Individuals who would have literally no part in any of it.
It gets demented. Okay. And then one letter specifically to Mary said, quote, lady, this is your last chance to report him. I know you are a pig and will prove it and shame you out of Ohio. A pig sneaks around and meets other women's husbands behind their backs, causes families and homes and marriages to suffer. End quote. So like, it's personal.
It's very personal. Every single detail in this sounds incredibly vindictive. Like, okay. So maybe there is something that is going on, but why go through that much effort for those circumstances? If there is evidence, if there is proof, why go through the trouble of sending out all of these letters if there is in fact proof that could not just be published, you know?
Yeah.
What do you get when you take two childhood friends with a passion for unexplored history and a whole lot of booze?
You get the goofiest game in history, Queen's Podcast.
Hi, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Katie, and we're the host of Queen's Podcast.
Join us while we spill the tea on women from history.
We get into all kinds of stories here, like biographies of lesser-known figures. For instance, Saida al-Hura, powerful pirate queen.
To the stories you might already know, like Marie Antoinette or Cleopatra, but with a fun twist.
Each queen is paired with a cocktail that'll totally get you in the mood to hear fun, juicy, and dramatic stories from history.
Because history is so much more than just dudes on a battlefield, and we believe that the female perspective and roles are just as deserving of their time in the spotlight.
Right. So come get to know these queens. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Cheers!
In addition, Ron received a letter saying that he had to admit that his wife was having an affair and expose her, and if he didn't notify the school board, he would be killed.
He would be killed. But if they have the evidence, why would him coming forward about his wife be necessary?
No idea. No idea. The letter here is kind of hard to read. It says, Gillespie, you have had 2 weeks and done nothing. You are a pig defender. You are also a pig. Make her admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, I will broadcast it on CBS. Posters, signs, billboards until the truth comes out. Only pigs ride motorcycles. Good hunting with your red and white truck on your way to work. Remember, she hung in his office constantly until she broke up his marriage and home. Confront people at school. They're aware. They are starving to touch, and not only at her. I don't know.
It's
to
laugh.
laugh. Let her read this. It is no lie. She knows I'm telling no lie. I followed him for weeks since last summer and have seen her meet him several times. He knew if caught, there would be trouble. He is not as serious as people think. He isn't concerned about your family, only himself. He can't have affairs with school employees and keep his job. He knows what I want. When he quits, I'll go away. He knows everything to be. So it's a long letter, okay? I'm trying to read like the handwritten note, but they're all like copy scanned in and then uploaded to the internet. So I'll upload this for you guys to see. You can probably decipher it yourselves.
Because for anyone who's curious and why this is kind of stumbling through, it's because every single letter is capitalized, which that's not necessarily is all the weird part with here. They normally do that with like magazines and whatnot for that kind of thing. But it's like everything is weirdly slanted in an italic way almost when it's handwritten, and simultaneously the letters are way too close together. I mean, it's like some of them, it's almost like cursive, except it's printed.
Yeah. So these letters, they're not okay. Not only are they revealing that they're watching them and know everything about them, but they're threatening the safety of her kids. In addition, the way that last letter was phrased makes it seem as though the writer is a woman who's taking the affair very personally. You know what I'm saying? Like calling her a pig, breaking up marriages, being really mad about the marriage being broken up, like the home wrecking aspect.
So when people are looking at this, so have letters at this point gone out to the entire town?
No clue. Not from these initial ones.
Hmm.
Because at first it's like very targeted towards Mary and Ron, and like the people like Paul Fresher and like his wife. Paul Fresher, I think, was the brother-in-law of Mary and Ron, and then Karen was Fresher's wife. So they kind of kept it within like this little family circle with the initial letters. But when things got really bad, then of course they went out to the sheriff, and then it got more publicly broadcasted. So at first they didn't tell anyone about these letters, only Ron's sister and her husband Paul Fresher and Paul's sister. And this was because they thought they knew who was sending these letters. And they actually came up with a plan for Paul to write a letter to the person they suspected, letting them know that they knew who it was. And much to their surprise, the plan, it worked, or at least that's what they thought, as the letters stopped for several weeks. So the person that they suspected was a man by the name of David Longbury, and Mary, she thought it was him specifically because he was a fellow bus driver that had previously made romantic advances towards her, and she'd rejected him, of course.
Wait, like as in tried to make advances at her while she's married and everything? Oh God.
But the rejection then led him like to be resentful, and so they had bad blood between them.
Oh no, I resent you so much for not cheating on your husband and having an affair. Like, oh my God.
So things ended up getting so bad for the Gillespies that they ended up taking their letters to the sheriff to see if the authorities would be able to do anything to help. An investigation was launched with people being interviewed, houses being watched, and they even tried working with the Postal Service to see if they could find any leads as to who would possibly be sending these mysterious and threatening letters. However, they weren't able to track anyone down. So the biggest clue they had to go off of were, the letters themselves. I've attached a photo of another one of them. As you can see, is handwritten in very neat and tidy handwriting, but as Steve said before, everything is capitalized. Certain things are underlined.
Some of it's slanted and pressed together. It's weird.
They have excellent penmanship. It's super clear, but it would be hard to track that, I think. So they were all written in the same handwriting, so the police believed that they were sent by the same person. But the letters were so neat and controlled that there was nothing significant that really stood out to help with identifying the writer. Detective James Smith of the Circleville Police Department is quoted as saying, "We had a lot of leads, but nothing ever came to fruition." So the other clue that they had to go off of was the content of these letters. The things that were being written were personal details. This wasn't just a random stranger writing these letters. The details that were being, written about showed that it was probably a resident of Circleville.
Yeah. Like as an example, they specifically said they'd been following her around for the previous 3 weeks, I think it said.
For weeks. So, if we revisit the Bridgerton comparison, Lady Whistledown had details only someone who was in the heart of society could get. She had access to rooms other people just weren't in.
She was hanging off on the side. She would listen to the maids and servants, people talking. Yeah, all those details.
So it had to be someone that lived in the town but didn't stand out too much and had access to a lot of private information, or at least access to areas where they could conduct significant surveillance, Like someone who would be able to park in front of someone's house and follow someone around and just not be noticed because they have an excuse to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's strange, right?
It is, especially since it's in a town that small, someone would take notice, you would think.
But anyway, back to the Gillespies. Things were only going to get worse for them. With no leads and the letter to the only suspect not doing anything to stop the letters, things would really become more sinister in August of 1977. And this is where we get into murder. Or alleged murder, a death. Someone dies. So on August 19th, 1977, Mary had left to go on vacation with her sister-in-law, and while she was on her way to Florida, Ron Gillespie, who was home with their children, received a phone call that made him so angry that he grabbed his gun, which was a .22 caliber revolver. He told his children that he knew who was writing the letters, and he was going to take care of the problem. He then headed out to his pickup truck, and he was gone. But
was he actually gone? Gone?
Well, that was the last anyone would see Ron Gillespie alive. Because shortly after leaving the house, Ron ended up crashing his truck into a tree, and he was found at 10:35 that night. An investigation into his death showed that he had a blood alcohol level of .16, which was about double the legal limit.
Oh my God. So that means he was at home. No one can spike his blood in that case.
Well,
that means he was drinking at home and then got so angry that he left?
Okay, no. So his gun had actually been fired once before the crash. No one knows who he was firing his gun at, and if he had actually found the writer of the letters and actually confronted them, no one knows. So trying to piece together a timeline was difficult, and due to the fact that Ron had a very high blood alcohol level, the sheriff ruled his death an accident caused by drunk driving. Even though Ron was not known to be a heavy drinker, and according to people he was around, he was not drinking prior to running off earlier that night.
Wait. Whoa.
I know.
So nothing?
I know. And then when you try to look more into it, they just can't tell. You can't,
I'm so confused.
So a huge point of speculation for the case of the Circleville letters lies here with Ron's death. Remember, his life was threatened if he didn't reveal the truth of his wife's affair. The writer said that if he didn't do something, he was going to end up dead. So was it an accident or was it murder? And if it was murder, how would that have been carried out? The sheriff, before ruling Ron's death an accident, had actually questioned a possible person of interest. But this person was ruled out after they passed a polygraph test.
Oh, wait, come on. A polygraph? But we know that those aren't really reliable.
Well, we know that now, but this was the 70s.
Oh, that's true. This was the 70s. Oh, God, that changes things.
So the identity of this person of interest has never been publicly disclosed, and the case was just left as Ron died due to reckless driving, which led him to lose control of his car due to being under the influence. So the interesting thing, though, is that the writer of the letters didn't seem to like how this investigation was handled or the conclusion that was drawn. And all of a sudden, letters were being written claiming that the sheriff was covering up the truth of Ron's death and that the coroner was guilty of sexual abuse of young children.
Weed. Okay, so that hold on. If people were saying that he hadn't been drinking, right, and that the sheriff is then going to come out and say, "Oh yeah, no, he just had this super high level of alcohol in his blood." If he was known to not drink and not have anything, and that's the truth, that means someone who was like no, what am I thinking of? Like for forensics, the coroner. Yeah, like someone in there who would actually be running the test could be dirty.
We would not be able to know that. That's the thing. This whole thing is just like so suspicious and weird. And about the coroner, there is a huge plot twist that will happen at the end of this episode. So just stick with me, guys, because every time you think, oh man, it can't possibly get worse, it does. So Ron's brother-in-law, that was DePaul Fresher, he was insistent that Ron was murdered, and he kept pushing the sheriff to investigate Ron's death as a murder. In fact, some sources say he went so far as to contact the FBI. Like, that is how sure he was that Ron was murdered. He wanted answers. And after all of this, the threats, her husband's death, a possible covered-up murder, guess what?
What?
It came out that Mary Gillespie was having an affair with Gordon Massey after all, but she claimed that she only started seeing him and they started seeing each other after her husband's death.
Hold on. No. Wait, I don't buy that for a freaking second. There is no way that after all that hell from the entire town, everything that could possibly be happening, that her suddenly seeing him afterwards, like, oh yeah, no, and this like what, like some Stockholm or Stockholm syndrome or like suspension bridge effect that drew her together with him in that time.
Trauma bond, but So once it came out that Mary was in fact in a relationship with Gordon, the threats became more intense. Also, where the fuck is Gordon's wife?
See, that's what I want to know. Is she the writer of the letters?
I don't know.
And what happens to her? So, okay, so they do start seeing each other. Does that come out and they're now in a public relationship? In that case, what happened? Did he divorce?
When I tell you I've tried looking into this Gordon guy and his personal life, you can find almost nothing about him. It was driving me nuts. Like, I was trying to find information about his wife because one source was like, oh, they were estranged. But then other sources were like, no, he was with his family. It had me livid. I was so glad they had privacy, but wow. How did they do that? That could only happen in the 70s, because nowadays someone in their neighborhood would be on Reddit like, oh my God, guys, I just saw Mrs. Massey and Gordon having a fight in their front yard. Like, be so for real.
Yeah, the aunties of the small town that would have been chatting up on each other's porch would have instead been posting it all over Facebook.
Or Reddit. Like, you ever been on Reddit when you're talking about like an influencer and they're like, well, actually, I live in her town and I saw her at Walmart.
When they're actually one of the all natural crunchy mom like things, and they're buying great value rice.
And this is like revealing so much about me, but I love messy Reddit drama. It's my like guilty pleasure, I think. But anyway, Mary and Gordon in a relationship, the threats become way more intense, and now Mary's daughter ends up getting roped into the entire ordeal. So a letter was sent stating, quote, "It's your daughter's turn to pay for what you've done."
Why would that ever be the case?
I don't know. Is anything this person's done logical? No. And so in 1983, things came to a head once again. So I think they had like a little lull in the letters for a little bit there. So like that must have been nice. But then 1977, Ron dies. And then from what I can see, there was like a little bit of a lull. And then Mary and Gordon revealed they were together. And then boom.
It
eruption.
all comes roaring back.
So The letter writer went around placing signs all around Circleville that said horrible things about Mary's daughter. Some of the signs said that Gordon Massey, the superintendent, sexually assaulted her 12-year-old daughter, and these signs were strategically placed along her bus route where the writer knew they would be seen by her. But this is where things get bad.
As though that wasn't bad already?
I know. In February 1983, Mary saw one of the signs talking about her daughter, and she stopped to tear it down. However, she noticed that the sign was connected to twine and a box, so instead of her ripping it down, she actually just took the box home. And when she opened that box, that's when she realized that this specific sign was booby-trapped in such a way that if someone tried to rip it down, a gun would go off and would kill the person. So,
whoa, wait, like it was like straight up one of those booby trap things, like when you would walk into a door, like people set this up for a shotgun and everything.
just
Yeah,
scroll
I'm looking
down.
at the picture now.
I have a picture here, you guys. I'll post it. It's a little sus. I mean, there's definitely a gun. That I know for sure.
Yeah, but that's
So,
like
this is like something out of a movie. My biggest question, and I know this is the 80s now, but I'd assume setting up a booby trap sign would take a decent amount of time. Like, how did no one see someone out there rigging an entire gun to a sign? I mean,
that looks like a Walther P22. Hold on, I gotta look this up.
so if it's along the bus route, surely people would pass often enough, even if it's late at night. I'm attaching a photo of the little booby trap contraption because it's definitely something. So, of course, Mary, she got the police involved. And the shocking thing is that when she turned the gun in, they were actually able to trace the serial number of the gun as registered to, just take a guess.
I'm gonna guess the superintendent.
No, none other than Paul Fresher, her brother-in-law.
Whoa, wait, what? How?
I don't know. The whole thing is so insane because he spent all this time helping them and trying to get answers for Ron's murder. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's trying to kill Mary. I don't know. But yeah. So now Paul claimed that his gun was stolen and that he had nothing to do with the booby trap. But he never reported his gun as stolen. So with no evidence to go off of in his favor, he ended up getting arrested. And Paul's estranged wife, which was Mary's sister-in-law, she was interviewed and she claimed that he in fact was the Circleville letter writer all along, even though he continued to deny it. So this could just be like a messy divorce. She found a way to take him down type vibe, or he could have been the writer all along, which doesn't make any sense, you know? I don't know, guys. It's so messy. So Paul was made to perform a handwriting test, but the way they did it made no sense. Like in a handwriting test, you would typically want to give someone the phrases so that they can write those in their own handwriting. But for this test, they actually just gave him one of the letters and they asked him to try to recreate it, which that's strange. So either way, Paul was arrested and he ended up facing trial for the attempted murder of Mary Gillespie. And during this trial, a handwriting expert testified that he did believe that Paul Fresher did in fact write these letters. So Paul was found guilty of attempted murder, and people assumed that he was also the Circleville letter writer. So you're probably going, Gabby, I thought you said we didn't know who wrote the letters. Well, we don't. You see, even when Paul was in prison, letters never stopped. And I don't know much about prison, but I'm assuming it would be incredibly difficult for him to secretly mail letters out to the entire community. So Paul himself received a letter from the letter writer that said, quote, "Now, when are you going to believe you aren't going to get out of there? I told you 2 years ago. When we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all?" End quote.
I'm so confused by this. In fact, I'm so confused. I'm sure it's going to be picked up in the podcast. I literally just said like, oh my God, the letters. And I just hit my head on the back of the wall right here. I'm just like flabbergasted as to what the hell is going on.
I know. And so even if Paul was somehow able to send those letters from prison, because, you know, you can send letters. A decent amount of these letters actually were sent when he was literally in solitary confinement with no way to mail anything. In addition, the letters were even more disturbing, with one letter accusing the prosecutor in Paul's trial of murdering a pregnant woman.
What?
Now, guys, the absolute crazy thing is how much this letter writer knew. Like the things that were said. Like, remember the claim about the prosecutor? I mean, it was kind of true.
Wait, whoa.
Okay. So the prosecutor did have an affair with a woman who was dead, and he was the father of her unborn child. But then also, you remember how earlier the medical examiner was accused of pedophilia?
Yeah.
Well, in 1993, he was officially charged with that. And the fact that the letter writer knew all of these things is so unsettling, because this is the type of information that people would take to their graves and they would do everything in their power to cover up. How did this person know so much?
Okay, hold on. So this is the prosecutor. All that is. What about the sheriff? Anything on the sheriff, or it could be someone in the sheriff's office who theoretically has access to a bunch of records and sees things?
I didn't post it. I didn't include it in here, but there were a ton of letters. I think I did mention it briefly, going out from the letter writer accusing the sheriff of covering it up, like a
you
cover
did say
up
that.
of Ron's death. So the sheriff was accused of manipulating evidence and stuff like that, just like covering this whole thing up. Because I think the sheriff, also some sources were saying that he was running for office and it would look super bad to him if he had someone get murdered like that under his nose, and then all these letters were going rampant all around town, like that would look pretty sus, So Thought Catalog and an Unresolved Mysteries Reddit post, because yeah, Reddit has everything. They actually had a pretty interesting list of possible suspects for the letter writer, so let's go over them. Please keep in mind, though, this case is unsolved, and the following is filled with what-if speculation. So first up, Paul Fresher. He ended up spending 10 years in prison, and he was released in May of 1994 on parole. He maintained his innocence, and he even had a website, which I have linked here in my sources. And this website basically explained details of the case, and just like a lot of things that were like, this is why, I'm
all
not
stuff
guilty.
Maintaining his innocence, like he did not do this, and trying to prove and show that.
Yeah. So he ended up dying in 2012, and he stood firm in the fact that he was innocent. Plus, since he was in prison, it would be really difficult to pull it off. In addition, there was a 48 Hours episode that claimed that they knew who the letter writer was, and while some experts thought it was Paul, other experts said that there were patterns in his writing that didn't match the
like all the sample letters and everything, like
Exactly.
it didn't sound like him.
So it was still pretty torn even between experts. So I don't know. I'm not sure that it is Paul. The whole thing doesn't add up. He seemed way too focused on solving Ron's mysterious death to really be attempting a murder himself. As the kids say, the math ain't mathin'.
No, and it sounds from all this like, wait, so he served prison time. He served 10 years, right?
Yes.
So he served 10 years on an I guess it was attempted murder charge for all this. That there was no definitive way of proving that he had actually done so, especially for setting up such a complicated booby trap to do. Like, what are the odds? The odds of that succeeding. Also, this is a sign that is just out there in just a random spot. That is very unlikely to actually take someone out unless that was a bomb. The only way that you could increase the likelihood of that is specifically by setting it in a way that is a trap. Normally, what people have done for actually rigging or booby trapping things is that they don't use a little pea shooter handgun. You use a shotgun, and that shotgun is hooked up to like a door frame. So as someone walks in, blasted, and it's a whole cone effect. And that's the idea behind that. You don't like a pistol in a box?
I know, it's really strange, the whole thing. And that's why, guys, if your guns go missing, report it.
Yeah, and also the whole thing, though, he served 10 years for this. I cannot believe that
a jury would put someone away over that little evidence,
Exactly.
But
so
again,
that makes it sound like a cover-up.
it's the 80s. So next up, we have Mary Gillespie. Some people say the fact that she knew to not take down the booby-trapped sign was an indicator that she had to be in on it. Like, who just stops? Like, if you're enraged and you're going to rip down a sign, you'll just rip it down, right? You're not going to be like, oh, a box, Plus, she was, in fact, having an affair with Massey. And then, like, her husband was killed. The whole thing is, some people were like, okay, she had to have been having that affair before her, from the get-go. Which I don't know. I'm not here to judge. I don't know.
Well,
That
all
is
this
not
other
what she
information that came out has turned out to be true.
I mean, partially true, but again, I don't want to slander, She said she wasn't having an affair while her husband was alive, then we're just going to go off of that, for the purpose of this episode. So the only thing is, would a mother go so far as to spread rumors about her own daughter? That doesn't make very much sense, especially since these were like terrible rumors. Also, how on earth would she have known all of the things that she did and in between parenting and working, find the time to mail all of these letters and hang all of these signs? You know?
Yeah, it's very excessive.
Also, the other bus driver that Mary initially thought was the letter writer, would he have been the guy? Well, in 1999, he actually assaulted an 11-year-old girl and died while on the run from the police. So that's all I could find about him.
Oh my God, is every character in this story not... This is like one of those things where it's like this small town that's like innocent on the surface, and then below that is just disgusting.
Yeah. So Karen Fresher, that was Paul Fresher's wife. There's the possibility where she may have framed him, right? They weren't on good terms in their divorce, and it would have easily, like, she would have had access to his gun, right? More than likely.
Yeah.
Maybe even with the help of Mary. The interesting thing is that with an already ongoing mystery, it makes it easier to use the mystery overall as a cover for other illicit activities. So if they wanted to take advantage to frame Paul, they could have. I mean, what was really stopping them? No one really knows who this random person writing letters is. Like, you can just say, oh, I got a letter from this guy threatening XYZ. It just gives them more opportunity. It gives people more opportunity to do other things, you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we have William Massey. So William Massey was Gordon Massey's son. And it was the only thing that linked him to this is the fact that the first letter of his name was W. And so some of the letters that were initially sent were signed with a W, which made people think that it was Gordon's son. I mean, this one is really far-fetched, you guys.
Not only is that far-fetched, but it makes me think that considering how small of a town and anyone that would be related, you'd immediately look for that kind of connection. People would be like, what is it, that guy? That seems like an obvious thing that you would want to avoid doing.
So I would rather hear theories as to where the fuck Gordon's wife is, and even Gordon himself. I feel like there's almost no information about him. I tried finding it, but he and his family are barely mentioned. Some sources say that Gordon divorced his wife, and others say he didn't. I have questions. With all of this happening, you would think we would have had more information, or at least an investigation into his wife, because what if she was just mad? Her husband was cheating. The person was more interested in having Gordon, like, they wanted him to have repercussions.
To die. Like, it literally said he doesn't deserve to live. That was one of these.
Not to be that guy, but if someone was having an affair with my husband, I too would maybe send some threatening letters, but that might just be me. And then, remember how I previously asked how no one saw someone build a whole ass booby trap sign? Well, someone known as El Camino Man was seen on the side of the road in a yellow El Camino in the area where Mary found the sign, and he was there 20 minutes before she allegedly found it. So there are claims that a man who Karen Fresher was dating at the time drove a similar vehicle.
So this is so they would have already been divorced. So this is the ex-wife who theoretically would be trying to set him up potentially.
Maybe.
Oh my God, that's so messy. If it even is real.
But guys, I don't know what I think at the end of all of this. I don't even think it was one person writing all of those letters. I think after a certain point, anyone in town could write whatever gossip they heard about anyone else and just send it out into the void for everyone to read. Kind of like a witch hunt, you know? Like, imagine your annoying ass neighbor sets off fireworks until 4 a.m. and you have the power to drag his name through filth, thanks to the fact that an anonymous letter writer likes to publish it. Like, come on. It's an easy opportunity for mischief, you know?
It seems like an ample, like an easy point where you could just air any grievances you could possibly want to be like, oh, no, I didn't do that. Yeah, I know that you did this thing, but there's someone around here that just mysteriously knows a lot of this information.
I feel like maybe initially a lot of letters were sent by one person and then other people found the opportunity to be like, hey, guess what? I have tea. But again, we have no way to know. They were never able to solve this case. Like, not even a little bit. There were no leads. And basically everyone, like Paul Fresher died. A lot of people died. So anyone who may have known, the letter writer themselves might be dead. So it's just, it is demented.
At any given point that could happen. And the worst part, well, besides the death, is that a person went to prison for 10 years on something that they still maintained to their dying day that they were innocent about. And there's, from everything that has been described, I cannot see how someone could actually be convicted of that on anything less than circumstantial evidence. Like, it's like that is a hard thing to have to prove, and it's like it was just thrown away.
Yeah. So let me know what you guys think of the episode. Who do you think it is? What do you think happened? I would love to hear, because I have no idea what to think. There's just so much, and there's so much information to dig through. Like, guys, if you wanted to deep dive on this, I mean, start at my sources and then just go for a dive, because there's a lot still. But thank you guys for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.